I dig it.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective, where we were going to have Yuri. We're just waiting on him. I sent him a message, so he'll be here soon.
Oh, I'm sure he's on his way.
Yeah, and until then, Shaun and I will chit-chat, as we always do. We'll answer some questions. We'll talk about some stuff.
Maybe we'll talk about Yuri while he's not here.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Let's talk about someone behind his back online to the world. That's Yuri. Totally the way. So
what do we got? What do we got going?
So I got some points here that we can dive into right away.
Okay, let's do that.
What's up, Winterstorm? How's it going? He's joining us once again. I got some videos here that Yuri sent me that we can go over as well. It's your call, my friend.
You run the show. It's your show.
I run the show. How is it my show? This was okay. I see how this is going. Okay.
Whose idea was this? It was your idea, Chance.
It was my idea. Okay. So, let's do a topic then while we're waiting for Yuri. And if he shows up, he shows up. If not, we'll carry on. So, I'm going to preface this before we get too deep into it because it can be it's a larger issue. Let's just put it that way.
Let's do it.
So the preface is the American dream. And
that's a juicy one.
Yeah, it is. It goes in deep. Okay?
Holy moly.
So I was thinking about this in the car one day, and my thoughts went like this. What is the American dream? Like, what is it actually about? What is the whole concept of it? Which is, the old the standard job, 9-to-5 job with the house and the white picket fence and the car and the I used to believe that the American dream was all about like freedom and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, all that stuff. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, I wonder if the American dream is actually more about stability than anything else. And the reason I thought that was because in the time period, you're looking after World War II, when the American dream was really pushed for a second time. That's what that concept was stability. It was no longer war and rationing and strife. It was all about, okay, everybody, let's just settle down. We'll have some kids, everyone will work, and we'll put the past behind us. Those were just kind of my entrance into the whole thought. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think it should probably be discussed through the lens of what it was, what it is, and what it will be. So those are three different timelines. And
that's a good point.
What it was is unimportant, I suppose. What it will be, it's anyone's guess. What it is right now, that's the only thing that matters, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And to the question, what is the American dream? I don't know. I don't even know if a lot of Americans know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know how much thought is being given to what is the American dream currently. I know there's a lot of debate and argument and divisiveness, but I don't know if anyone's really sat down and talked much about it like it used to be discussed back in the day. And so it just feels like right now, the American dream, I'm generalizing, obviously. It just feels like it's always in a state of flux. It's always unstable, whatever the dream is, because no one really seems to be sitting down and really carving out what the current day dream is and then executing against it. It just seems an unstable dream, if you follow me.
Yeah, I do. And now when I say the American dream, I think I'm referencing like the North American dream.
Yeah, I'd say.
And because the Canadian dream is pretty similar. It's not the same. And I think it's very different depending on the regions of Canada you go into.
Well, to the point, I mean, when's the last time any Canadians sat down and nationally discussed the topic to really identify what the dream is, because it's hard to execute against something if there's nothing down on paper.
I guess that's the crux of the conversation, then, isn't it?
Right? Yeah, a big 3-letter with a question mark. It actually starts with a W and ends in HY.
Okay, well, let's think about that then. What is the why? What is your why as a Canadian?
As a Canadian?
Yeah.
I think those kind of things are defined by our cultural past. What are generally accepted practices to what it means to be a Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
And then, doing your best against that cultural past or expectation and seeing where it takes us into the future. But certainly right now in the present time, it doesn't feel like it's carved out clearly as to what we are as a country, I suppose. I mean, there's general discussion, and everyone kind of knows, generally speaking, what Canada's about, but I can't remember the last time that there was a solid discussion about what it means to be a Canadian. I mean, like a straight, clear up, easily definable, and maybe it's because it's hard to define because we're such a melting pot, and it's such a broad range of opinions and ideas and expectations and future potentialities and so on and so forth. I'm not sure that the discussion has been had recently that I can think of that I nodded my head and thought, oh, okay, good. We're good for another 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Gives us an aim, a direction of some sort.
Yeah.
Winterstorm asks, is it a dream for success as a group or as an individual?
I think that's a great question. And it goes back to, maybe it ties into what we were chatting about yesterday with the CQB discussion.
Mm-hmm.
1-person CQB versus a 5-person CQB. In order to work in a team, first you got to get good as you. And so, in respect to, I guess, what it means to be a Canadian or as a country, what do we want or whatever. I mean, first off, you got to start with a 1-man team and figure out what you want and who you are and what it means to be a Canadian as a Canadian. And then look around for the 5-man team and then figure it out from there. But the point is right on the money. How can we know as a nation what we are if we don't know what we are as an individual?
That is a great point. And to the discussion yesterday, we were talking about, as you have to build that concept. It's not something that's just dropped in your lap. You can't go from doing a 1-man CQB and then just know how to move in a 5-man team or a 10-man team or a 15-man, whatever. It's something that you have to rebuild and integrate and develop and try stuff and fail and then try some other stuff. And it's a building process. So I think that especially for the Canadian dream, I like the idea of being the best Canadian you can be. That is up to you. And then looking at the person beside you and going, well, if they're being the best Canadian they can be, what can I learn from them? What can I take? What can I address? What can I put into my playbook? Whatever. And then as a 2-man stack, carry on. And then just
the idea being that just like CQB, if you go to bed at night and don't think this, I really want to know what CQB means. And then you wake up in the morning and magically there's an answer in front of you. Oh, good. I slept on it and now I've got an answer. I mean, that's a start. Then before you go to sleep, not thinking about what it means and hoping that some magic powers drop the answer into your lap magically. That just is not how it works. You got to put some thought into these kind of things. And so if you want to know what it means to be in a 1-man CQB team, or you want to know what it means to be a Canadian, you got to start thinking about it. You got to put some effort into it to figure out what it means to be a Canadian. And then, if your ideas, if you solidly carve out your ideas of how you want to be a better Canadian, maybe your ideas are way off base. Maybe you think that to be a great Canadian, you've got to go, set your neighbor's house on fire. Maybe that's how bizarre your mind is working. So my point would be this, that in order to be a good Canadian, you got to think about that yourself in isolation and then run the idea against your neighbor. Like, hey, pal, what does it mean to be a Canadian? Have you ever thought about that? Or, you're at work and you look over at your workmates at lunch and say, hey, buddy, you ever thought about what it means to be a Canadian? And see where the conversation goes. At least get some interoperative ideas to then maybe work together as a team based on what your ideas of what it means to be a Canadian. Because, you could be way off base. That's why you got to check in.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about this, was the fact that it leads into what we're talking about with martial arts, or what we're going to be talking about with martial arts, in that if you're a martial artist, you have to be able to ask yourself, what is a good martial artist? Because there are lots of martial artists out there that are not, they might be skilled, they might be highly skilled, they might be world-class athletes, but are they a good martial artist? And
they, regardless of their skill, they might have zero skill, but they might own 12 gis.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't even own any gis. Maybe they just own a bunch of memberships that they've never attended.
A whole bunch
but in
of
their
white
mind, now they're a martial artist, and so they pay their monthly fee. They've never gone to the location, but in their mind, maybe they're a practicing martial artist because somehow they feel that they're committing. I'm not sure how, but I guess people work differently. And so, that's the idea behind, if you want to draw it into the conversation about being what does it mean to be a Canadian? Well, what does it mean to be a martial artist? You've got to go figure it out in a team setting. Just like you've got to figure it out as a Canadian, you've got to go stand around a bunch of Canadians and have that conversation.
Yeah. Winter Storm added another point here. Does the success of the individual contribute to the group, or does the success of the group support the individual? And I think we need to define that to define the North American dream. And I think we talked about this yesterday, was that in the CQB setting, if everyone's supporting you, that's okay, so long as you are doing your best to get to the level of the people that are supporting you.
That's right.
But if you are not doing that, if you're just allowing people to support you without working towards being better, without working towards being above, then you're not being an asset to the team, and therefore you're
weakening the team.
Yeah. So I think that applies to this question. What do you think?
That's how I thought of it immediately, is referencing back to the discussion of the CQB tactics and the implementation of how to interoperate within the team. You're either an asset or you're not. And if you're not, now the team resources are going into you to pick up your slack, and it's your responsibility to get better and start providing for the team rather than taking from the team. And I'm paraphrasing now. The conversation was longer, more nuanced, etc. But that's the point that applies here, I think, is the success of the individual is important, but the success of the team is more important, because the team's success creates individual success. And so you've got to do your best as an individual to be best for the team. But to do that, you've got to become the best version of yourself. So you've got to focus on you in order to be the best for the team. So don't show up as a 1 out of 10 and expect the team to give you 9 out of 10 for the rest of your life. You got to perform. You got to support the team that you want to be part of. And if we're calling the Team Canada as an example, work on you, but consider the greater calling, which is work on your country.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking of the, as a member of a club, and I go to jiu-jitsu and I train and I work hard and I try to better myself. But in so doing, I am bettering the club.
For sure.
Because I'm becoming a better martial artist, which by being a better martial artist and working with the people in the dojo there, they're getting better because I'm getting better. And
For
because
sure.
they're getting better, I'm getting better. And then it becomes this positive loop where everybody's trying to make each other better and everybody gets better while
Yeah, and
everyone's just working on
you're
themselves.
getting better in two ways. One is the active and one is the passive. And
Mhm.
so the active is because you're getting better on the mats. Anyone who's new to the mats, you can now teach them. You can now guide them. You can skill develop them, et cetera, et cetera. So you can practically interoperate with those individuals and raise their game.
Mhm.
So that's the active portion. But the passive portion is you never have to say another word. You don't even have to look at the individual. They could be invisible to you, but you're not invisible to them. And so your job, even if you never say another word to any noob that comes onto the mats as the example, is leadership by example. You just do your best. And they will watch from the sidelines or right in front of you. And you never have to look at them or say another word, but they're learning based on your actions. You are leading by example. And so drawing that out into the Canadian concept, it would be a case of you got to do your best for sure and actively participate in making a better country.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you don't have to worry about waving a bunch of flags in your hand and saying I am Canadian. You don't have to say anything. You don't even have to own a flag. You've just got to do your best, and people will see it, and people will engage with that. And perhaps through leadership by example, they'll follow your lead and try to be a better Canadian, whatever that means to each person. And I think there's some general principles that we could identify as what it means to be a good Canadian. But I think those are generally, I think they're commonly understood. But you've got to lead the way as an individual.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the great points. I really like that. I think you summed it up quite well. I got a comment from Eric. People referring to the American dream today often do it in terms of wealth and fame, making it, so to say. And making it might have meant the stability referred to earlier in past times. Now people see the same stability as enslavement, i.e., the rat race.
Yeah, listen, I agree. I agree with Eric. He's right. In fact, this morning I was, and you're right, I was saying the other day about the Jocko podcast and how I thought it might have been on the Jocko Underground. It wasn't. It's on the Jocko podcast. And I think it's episode 369 and 370.
Yep.
I listened to 370 this morning, so I listened to 369 yesterday. And yesterday's was about the game. And then this morning's was the game within the game. And as you and I were laughing about the other day, this idea of the game that Jocko was talking about in 369 and 370 episodes, it's legit, but it's not like Jocko invented it. I mean, it's just his observation. It was my observation 20 years ago, and 20 years ago there was a boatload of us that were having the same observation. And then 100 years before that, there was a boatload having the same observation. These are universal observations that are kind of universal truths, the game, if you want to call it the way, the path. And so, listening to that this morning, episode 370, what was Jocko talking about? The rat race, man. In fact, his discussion, he talks about, a starred general saying to him, he had this big long career, and then Jocko was talking with him, and the dude looks at Jocko, and I'm paraphrasing now, saying, he says, "That's all a pile of nonsense." What does it mean? Because now he's a civilian, and now he doesn't have a bunch of flags waving as he pulls up in his convoy, and someone opens a door for him. Now he's just another dude, starting from square one. And no one's saluting, no one's handshaking, no one's actually opening a door for you anymore. In fact, you're now opening doors for others. In fact, maybe you're now pushing a shopping cart into that hellish shopping space, and people are bumping into you and giving you the stink eye because now you're a quote-unquote nobody. And so you'd have to go listen to episode 370 with Jocko and understand what I'm talking about, in the sense of, life can change in the sense of your identity of who you are. And I think it's a valuable conversation that people should go listen to 369 and 370 in respect to the game. The game that we're playing as Canadians, I mean, that's what helped shape our country. And so, in respect to the rat race, Jocko speaks specifically about that, how lots of guys, I did it myself when I got out of the teams, chasing the metric of money. Trying to establish your value based on making more money. Your value is your value, your bank value. And I fell into the same trap when I got into computer system engineering. Here's why. Because when I was a warrant officer in the teams, we were broke. We made like no money at all. In fact, I broke down my salary, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so. I put it up on the interwebs, broke my salary down as a warrant officer in JTF2. And here's what I was making per hour based on the average hours that I worked per day, every day, no days off kind of thing. And I was conservative in this estimate. In fact, it would be far less if I was being honest with the numbers, but I was conservative, and I said effectively I was getting paid less than $5 an hour to do that job, which is an insane job. And it's so diabolically bad to pay when you look at it that way. When I got out, I was like, man, I want to make money, not lose money. And so I started chasing that money, and I wasn't, it's not that I wasn't happy, but I wasn't satisfied until I started making my first six figures. And once I broke into six figures, I was like, okay, finally, I'm playing a different game. And that was my game for a while, was chasing that, but it was the wrong game. It was just an outcome of the pay game, the lack of money game that I just stepped out of. So the rat race is a thing for sure, and you can get lost in it for sure. And I think the important part is, if someone says, "Hey, bro, pull your head out of the sand and start focusing on the things that are important," and it ain't money, well, they're right.
Yeah, I luckily I didn't spend a lot of time in the rat race. I did my time before the army doing random jobs and stuff, and then I joined the army, and then I'm now retired, so I haven't had to do the rat races all. Thankfully.
I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if there's lessons in the rat race as well.
There's lessons everywhere. I mean,
for
it
sure.
really depends on where you pull it from. I got a question here from Winterstorm. Is the Canadian identity determined by what we are, or by what and who we are not?
I think it's both.
I was gonna say both too.
I think it's some of both. Probably the best answer to that question is the truth lies somewhere in the middle, because that's generally what we are as a country. Is we tend to operate in the middle of not quite the neutral zone from Star Trek, but the neutral zone of politics, of opinions, of stance, of not making too much of a fuss, making the right amount of fuss, but not too much fuss. That's kind of how we are as Canadians. We just hang out in that neutral zone of not. It's not that we don't want to offend anyone, but we just kind of don't want to offend anyone. So we hang out in the middle. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I like it. It's a really good question. I really like that. It reminded me of when you said the neutral zone. I just pictured like a whole bunch of Canadians just hanging out in space, like, "Hey, buddy, what's up?"
Yeah, for sure, man. So did I.
But yeah, there's some really great things about this, and I was thinking about, there's a Jordan Peterson quote that he was saying that you can't be to be gentle, you have to know how to be dangerous, or something like that. And you can't be weak and not be violent. That's not a virtue. By not being violent, by being weak, you have to be capable of violence and then not do violence for that to be a virtue, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Where it all falls apart is maybe not 9 times out of 10. Let's be more conservative. 8 times out of 10. Every guy who reads that quote now thinks he's dangerous and now thinks he's like going to go sort it all out, when in fact they're the weakest link in the chain.
Yeah.
And I say that they're weakest link in the chain, not because they're weak, which they probably are, because if they weren't, they'd be able to clear this up lickety split. But they're weak because they think they're going to go sort it out, but they're actually the ones who need the most supporting, that they need the most sorting out. And it goes back to what we were talking about yesterday in the CQB. If you don't have your skills as a one-man CQB, and now you're trying to be part of that team, and you can't even do one-man skills, never mind team skills. But now you want to be part of that team, you're dragging the team down.
Yeah.
You're a liability, not an asset. All the team's energy has to go into supporting you, and maybe they're just barely making it happen. That's a massive resource suck.
Yeah.
And teams don't have the luxury of that sometimes. So you got to get yourself squared away in order to be part of that team. And so, as Canadians, I think, the Jordan Peterson quote, you got to be this in order to be that. Well, before you can move even a half inch down that path that you've got to be this in order to be that, you got to start actually being this. It's not like you read it, blink, and then move past it and think, okay, I'm already there.
Yeah.
I'm already a monster or whatever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that, man. The time that you read that phrase, I've got to become a monster in order to be helpful. The moment you read that, look forward into the future about 10 years.
Yeah.
And now you're close to being helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking in terms of the duality of it. Not so much the exact wording or the I agree with you though. There's a lot of people that'll hear that and go, "Yeah, all right, I'm."
Well, that's where it all falls
right?
apart.
But
that's where it all falls apart.
Yeah,
the words are taken literally.
So it's true. That's a good point. They are freaking literally. I was reading into it slightly. I guess maybe more in depth of it in terms of it. In terms of this question, right? In order to be Canadian, it is determined by what we are, but it is equally and also determined by what we are not, right? In the fact that are, and I think that especially there's this random fact I learned many years ago about Canada in World War II was before the war, we had almost no navy, almost none. And then by the end of the war, we had the third largest navy in the world. And Canada does this in wartime quite often where we just kind of sit, we're like, no, we don't want to fight. We don't want to fight. It's all good. We don't want to fight. And then when the fight breaks out, we're like, all right, it's on. And we just go ham to finish and be done with it. And we're capable of great things. Hence all, the battle honors that we've won and the fights that we've finished. But at the same time, at the end of it, we all go, okay, cool, put it all away now. Right? And now we're going to go back to our lives and we're going to chill out. We're going to relax. And we did the same thing with Afghanistan and Bosnia. And every time we don't need the military right now, we let it slide quite a bit. But then we immediately rush back.
That's happened.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happened now. That's where we're at right now. But here's the difference between then and now. Then, name a big war. Things were moving slower.
Yeah.
World War I, World War II. You look at the buildup of that, and it's now a fair bit into the war, and Canada's still looking around, thinking, "What are we gonna do? Okay, let's start building ships. How long is that going to take? It's going to take a couple of years. All right, we got time because this thing's going for a while. So let's start building, and hopefully we get them built in time, and then we'll go see if they float."
Yeah.
And so that's cool. There's the luxury of time. But that's not how the world works now. The velocity factor is more intense. And so the gas pedal isn't just moving an inch into war. The foot gets slammed all the way to the floor and the gas pedal is maxed out and things are happening per minute, not per year. And the response time to build a boat to see if it floats. We don't have the luxury of that.
Yeah.
Just the velocity of violence and conflict now is radically different than it was 50 years ago.
So we have to be more proactive, which is...
Well, I mean, and we're not.
That's true. Yeah. I was just thinking that one of my challenges, especially in martial arts, has always been that I want to see what happens first. Right? I don't want to be the initiator of violence. I will finish violence, no problem. That I got no issues with that. But I guess maybe it's just from I'm not sure what it is, but especially in jiu-jitsu, I will wait for the other person to make the first move, and then I will start
every time.
I'll start. I'd say up until I get probably 2 or 3 rolls deep, and then it's
Why is that?
game on.
I mean, since we've totally deviated from the topic at hand.
Well, I figured we're talking about martial arts. I'm gonna try and. But
yes, indeed, that's right. That's how we started. Before we solved all the country's problems.
Well, I'm gonna come back to that. Don't worry.
All right, okay.
I have a plan.
I don't even know what's going on anymore.
I have a plan. Yeah. My plan right now. So anyway.
So back to why you don't think before you do jiu-jitsu.
It's not so much that I don't think about it.
Okay, that was going to be my point, but okay.
It was that I like, at least I find it easier, let's say, to react to a situation post initiation.
Sure, I get it. But my point is this, that do you think before you do that first roll, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing today as I've done every single day ever. And I'm just not going to think about what I want to do right now.
I don't think that's what I do. No.
Oh, what do you think then?
I usually think about what I want.
First roll. So what do you think?
Grips.
Okay, so you think, I don't have a plan. I don't want anything out of this. I'm not going to initiate. I'm just going to wait until I'm 3 rolls warmed to start thinking.
I guess that is what I do.
I'm just saying, because lots of people do.
Yeah.
It's not wrong. It's not I'm not saying that if anyone out there is doing that, you're a bad dog into the doghouse. That's not my point. My point is that in your first roll, if you know that you don't want to make a plan, because it usually takes you 3 rolls to start making a plan, knowing that, your next thought should be, maybe I'll change it up next time. See how that works out for me.
Yeah.
It's called a pattern interrupt.
And there we go. So this is where I'm going to get back to being good Canadians, is that I think perhaps that we are in that position right now. We have the ability to pattern interrupt at any point in time. I think that's what we're doing here with the collective as well, is that we're fighting the algorithm, and we're pushing back on negativity that we see online, and we're pushing back against the stuff that we don't need.
We're talking rather than not talking. And so, any of these conversations, like the precise conversation that we're having right now, if what I'm suggesting to you is making you think, maybe I should try that as a different approach and see how it works. And, that was a dumb idea. I'm never doing that again, but at least I gave it a try. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are good things. Even if it moves you slightly left or slightly right by 1 inch to try something different, that's good. If you've never considered it before.
That's a good point, and you're absolutely right. That's why we have conversations.
Yeah, for sure,
so that
man.
we can share information, so that we can develop ideas, and we can back and forth, and that's the whole point of the collective. I got a comment here from Eric. A problem with having our identity and value tied up in money or any material metric is you're constantly putting others below or above you based on what you have or don't have. I believe, that's a concept of chasing the Joneses, or whatever it is, following the Joneses.
Yeah, but he's adding more, is he? Or?
Yeah, he carries on. I can add this in. So you'll never have enough, i.e. will never be enough in that game. Extrapolated to its extreme, you get a dictator. Never enough control or power. Yeah,
at the high level, he's right, and that's how things called the Colosseum end up getting built. And so, I think that, at least for me, I don't know about everyone else, but how it worked best for me was I had to go from, a broke warrant officer to chasing money. And chasing money, I had to contextualize it against the yardstick of, I'm currently a 1 out of 10 right now in the sense of making money. I wonder what 10 out of 10 looks like. And I wonder what 8 out of 10 looks like. I wonder what 6 out of 10 looks like. And so I just started chasing the contextual money or wealth or things that I'd never had before being exposed to. I'm not talking about like buying a fancy car or anything like that. I'm just talking about understanding money better, how to create money better, how to shape that money life better. Once I understood how to get it, and once I understood what it meant to have it, then I was kind of satisfied to some degree. But until I pursued it, got it, and then used it and got comfortable with it, I felt not unsatisfied, but I felt uneducated, I suppose.
I like that. I think that's good extrapolation into basically anything you chase, because it can become. I know this has happened to me quite often, where I want to learn about something, so I'll study it for a little while, and I'll reach a level of competency that I feel comfortable with, and then I'll be like, okay, cool, I'm okay here. I'm cool. What's next? Now what? And then you either you dive further in, which is, I think you made a point about this on one of the round tables a while ago last year, was there's a choice that you can either dive further into it, go harder into the development or creation or whatever it is of that skill and become like an expert in it, or you can shift focus and go to something else and start learning about that, and then diving into the depths of it to get to a point where you're capable.
Yeah, and I don't know if I made the point at the time. I forget the fullness of the conversation. I hope I made the point then, but I'm definitely going to make the point now. For me, it doesn't matter if a person wants to scrabble all the way down to the rabbit hole, the bottom of it. That's kind of like how I work. But how I work is I expose myself to things, like we'll call it podcasting. And then when I think to myself, okay, this is what I got to do, or this is what I'm being asked to do, or this is what I want to do, whatever. It doesn't matter which one of those do's it is. But the moment that I establish do, then I get on with doing. And for me, it's all the way to the bottom of the rabbit hole. I scramble hard. I try to own it. I try to chase excellence or mastery of the subject. It doesn't mean that I'll ever achieve that. It just means I'm going to go hard after it. But I can't do that with everything. And so there's only so many hours in the day. But I know how I work. And I know that once I sink my teeth into something, I'm going to go hard at it. But again, that's not for everything. And that's not for everyone. But I will say this, to my point. If in that conversation in the past that you're referring to, I didn't say this, I'll say it now. If you've never chased something all the way or to as close as the bottom of the rabbit hole as you can get, if you've never done that, you got to do it at least once. You got to go hard on something, a hobby, a sport, or whatever, a passionate thing that you're into. You got to go super deep in order to understand what that means, in order to contextualize your sense of subject matter expertise versus your casual dabbling with everything else in your life. Because until you form that delta between deep Scrabble and dabbling, you'll never understand your own yardstick.
Yeah, I think you did make that point. Thank you for clarifying that too. But yeah, because you're absolutely right. If you've never been to the depths of something, and this also goes into
Martial
you know,
arts,
martial arts, this for sure, but also the Canadian identity of this
for
whole
sure.
question here, and quite a few things is that you got to know what you're capable of.
Yeah, at
You got
least
to
in one thing.
in one thing, and it goes back to another one of our conversations where I said, I think you and I were saying it was like in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you are,
Yeah, for sure.
and it's just you gotta have a yardstick. You gotta have something to gauge off of. But if your yardstick is 2 feet away from you, well, I think you can go farther 2 feet.
Yeah, and the other thing is, in order to go deep into whatever it is that you're wanting to get deep into, martial arts or what it means to serve your country or whatever the case is, the deeper you go and the more that you learn about yourself, the more that you'll learn about the people around you and what it means to have conviction or discipline and focus and execute against a task with consistency of effort and have I won't call it a higher calling, but have a greater target in front of you other than I wonder how many Eggo waffles are left in the freezer this morning. I mean, you got to have more than that in your life. You've got the big dream that you have in front of you isn't something that you should be able to accomplish as you're eating your Eggo waffle tomorrow morning at breakfast. It should be, I don't want to say immense or dreamy, but your goal in front of you should not be achievable by tomorrow morning. And the goal should be far enough down the pipeline that to pursue it, you've got to commit deeply.
Yeah. Which means that you're going to go through some trials.
Yeah.
And you're going to go through some hard days. You're going to go through
winner, chicken dinner. That's the good stuff.
Yeah. And actually, last night, so you and I were talking the other day, that I'm in a depressive episode right now. And I went to jiu-jitsu last night. And it was a rough one.
Good.
And that's what I mean is that it's one of those roles, one of those sequences that I learned a lot about myself because it was really hard. I had a hard time remembering the things that we were doing. I had a hard time getting the moves down.
Good, you sucked.
And yeah, exactly. You know what I did?
Awesome.
I kept going.
Nice.
I sucked, and I
through the
just kept
tears.
going. And that's it. There was a point I was rolling with a couple of young guys, and they were just all over me. I had no answer, and I just like defending, and then the time ran out, and I was like, "What happened?" Like normally, I've rolled with them before, and I can usually manage pretty well, but these guys, they were just all over me, and it was an extremely challenging 45 minutes worth of rolling.
Humbling.
Yeah. And at the end of that, I was like, I can't wait for Sunday. I can't wait for Tuesday. I can't wait for that. Like, I'm looking forward to
So where do you think it went wrong for you? And by wrong, I mean like the delta between your standard issue performance with those young bucks versus last night.
I didn't feel like I was.
By the way, are we off tangent enough already?
Oh,
or?
We're going there.
Well
yeah.
off. Okay.
I'm gonna bring this
Welcome
back.
to the tangent show.
Yeah, here we go. One of the things was I felt very behind. Like I was. It took me longer to assess what was happening.
So mentally.
And
did you buy into that dialogue?
It wasn't so much a dialogue as it was just kind of me noticing that it was happening.
After the fact, you noticed it, or in the moment you noticed it?
It was usually after. It was because I would be 2-3 moves behind, where normally I would be ahead. And it was, in the moment I was just trying to survive. So
of course,
these guys were trying to kill me.
But as an example, after the roll, you kind of shake your head and think, "What the heck? I'm better than that. What is even going on?" And so did you think that?
I thought, yes, I did think that exactly.
Or did you think that when you got home?
No, I thought that after the roll, and then I was like...
And so did you recalibrate?
I did.
And what came of that?
It happened again.
You sucked.
I sucked. I sucked. Like,
that's okay. That's cool.
And that's cool.
That's cool.
I'm not worried about it. It was...
Yeah, of course not.
I continually looked at each roll as new. It wasn't like, oh, I need to do I need to do X or Y or this or that in order to beat this guy. It was okay. Whatever, that didn't happen. New fight, new challenge. Let's go. And it was, the same thing happened. I just sucked. It was just.
And so when you in that next upcoming roll, did you realize, oh man, I blew it on that last roll or whatever, however you categorized it, doesn't matter. Did you like shake your head and think, oh, I'm just gonna try my best again? Or did you think, screw that, I'm gonna totally 180 my game?
Well, I didn't say that exactly, but yeah, I was like, okay, no, I'm not letting this happen again. And I went into that third roll, and that's when the game kicked. That's when the game kicked in. And
because we've already established the first two rolls you do no thinking. So,
but yeah, the third one,
I'm not sure how those first two rolls ended up the way they did, because like magical.
Exactly. Yeah, could just be anything.
Magic powder wasn't working.
All the talent in the world was not helping me at all in those moments.
Without thought.
Yeah, and it was a challenge, and it doesn't happen often that I have those days where I'm there and I'm that far behind. But again, it taught me something, and it taught me how to be better next time. Because that third roll, I was like, game on. I'm gonna
change it around.
I'm doing something different here. And so I went after him, and I did much better. And it was interesting. My professor mentioned it on it, was that between the four of us that were there, the skill sets kept changing. So like I had a difficult time with guy number 1, and then guy number 1 had a difficult time with guy number 4. And then by the time I got to guy number 4, I had no problem with him at all. So it was this weird where everyone's was going up and down. Yeah, and this is the best thing about jiu-jitsu, is that you're gonna have those days, just like when you struggle with something new, just like when you struggle with something that you're trying to get deep into, especially like mental health, or perhaps concepts of being a Canadian. We're going to go through some strife times. We're going to go through some difficult times as a group, as individuals, and we have to continually look forward. Okay, what do we do different next time? Okay, let's switch this up. Okay, we're going to change this. We're going to change that. I think that's
using the BJJ example of you require 3 rolls to start thinking, and I'm generalizing just to make the point. How do you feel it would work for mental health, that an individual who's struggling with mental health, they only consider how to do it better every 3 days?
Yeah, that I know people that do that.
Well, you're one of them,
and I am. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and that's the point on the BJJ mats, or that's the point in life, in mental health, in any subject at hand. Just because you did it one way your entire life yesterday, today's a different day that you get to rejig your program. We're all in charge of how we want today to go. And if you've kind of been doing it not optimally in the past, change it now. So Chance's routine of not thinking until roll 3, that just changed. He's going to start thinking like right from the get-go. He doesn't have to solve the mysteries of the BJJ universe on roll number 1. He's just got to be intention filled. He's just got to give it some pre-thought and be part of the moment with thoughtful intention, which is what we all need to do on the regular in everything that we do. The pattern of, I don't really kick it off until roll number 3, that's a self-belief. That's self-idealized prophecy. And it doesn't have to be that way. And Chance, you and I can agree that the best approach to getting better at BJJ is actually being part of that first roll. And so that's the same with mental health. It's not okay to just think about it every 3rd day. You've got to think about it every day and be intention filled on how you want to address that first roll of the mental health day.
And it's actually helped quite a bit, because this particular depressive episode that I'm in, this is the best I've ever done. Right? It's been
I'm not sure
intentioned every
I'm
day.
not sure my advice of yesterday is repeatable to the internet on how to address these issues
Probably
sometimes.
not. Probably not. But you know what? It's actually on the internet. I've heard it before. I've heard it in reels.
Right.
So if
Yeah.
it's been there
Yeah.
before, and I think the point
I
I
might
wanted to
have
make,
used colored language. I might have
slightly,
used language that
slightly colored
was
language.
distasteful. But
Well,
it's not that it was sound advice. It was just advice that was relevant to you in the moment because I know you well enough, and
mhm.
that kind of advice doesn't work for everyone. It only works for some people, and it's the best advice for guys like you and I.
Yeah, it's very true. And it's one of those things that sometimes you need to hear it in a certain way. I've
Yeah,
said
for
that
sure.
many times before. There's sometimes the verbiage has to hit right at the right time with the right people,
That's
and
right.
then it clicks in, and you go, "Oh yeah, right."
Yeah, and
yeah.
if anyone's delivering any advice to like, I'm not the right guy to give advice to anyone. These are just my opinions. But when I whatever opinion I threw at Chance yesterday, once we'd stopped recording and we were hanging out in the green room of the collective, and I was giving some choice opinions, uh, that they don't all have to be perfect. It's not like I'm not trying to nail it 100% with every single word. I'm getting a general intention out, and then Chance gets to consider it and move forward in whatever way. But it's better that I say something than nothing.
Mhm.
And it's better that, I'm obviously making my best effort. But if I'm only 78% doing it right, that's better than 0%. And anything that, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable, even if I kind of not correctly calibrate the moment in whatever sense, anything is better than nothing. Turning a blind eye to things is just not the way to help people.
Yeah, it's a choice. That's the thing. Shutting down or not saying anything is a choice.
It is.
And you choose to either not engage or engage. And you're right. Engagement is always better.
Always.
I got a comment here. Being Canadian means not allowing yourself to be defined by others, and despite doing well, always believing you could do better. That is I like that.
It is. It is.
I really do.
I will say this, though, if you can leave that up,
Yep.
or unless there was a follow-on that's
There's a bit of a follow on here.
Okay, well, let's
I'll just
see
throw it
that
up
one.
here.
Okay.
I think we define ourselves by the struggles rather than the successes.
I feel, yeah, that's kind of correct, but I kind of feel like it's, again, somewhere in the middle on that one. I think as Canadians, we define ourselves by both simultaneously, or at least I do.
Yeah.
So to this point, being Canadian means not allowing yourself to be defined by others, and despite doing well, always believing that you could do better. I agree, but here's the thing: every Canadian is a unique Canadian, and some Canadians don't like being defined by others, and they dislike it so much that now they're flaring out and they're acting out, and all of a sudden they're pumping their fist at the clouds and yelling at everyone around them. And now they've got all kinds of flags waving, parading down Center Street, and yelling about what their definition of what it means to be a Canadian. And that's cool. Do your thing. Do your protest. Have your little song and dance moment. Rah rah sis boom ba. But the problem is when it's offensive to everyone around you, that you're not interacting with this thing called society. And so society within Canada, I would say, frowns upon anyone who's yelling down Main Street, waving flags and punching people in the face. Society is going to frown on that. And so what you've got to understand, it's cool for every Canadian to define themselves, allow themselves to define themselves and doing what you want despite whatever others believe. But you've got to contextualize it against how abnormal your thoughts are in respect to what our country called Canada as a society feels is a operative norm that is not so offensive that everyone is looking at everyone else around them thinking, is this really happening?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're that guy where everyone's looking at you and saying, is this really happening? It's time to rejig your program.
That's a great point. I think you're right in that. It's a challenging proposition too, because in order to fix any problem that you see, you have to be part of the system in order to fix the problem. And the only time in which you can try to fix a problem outside the system is when you smash the system and start over, which means you're going to have a whole new set of problems and a whole new set of things. And I think it's, well, I don't want to get too much into politics because we really shouldn't. We don't want to get into anything here.
We're not gonna.
So the concept that I was going to talk about was more about just be your best self.
Yeah, man.
Right. And then instead of, at least I think this is where it stems from, instead of looking at it from I want change right now, what it needs to be more of what can I do now to instill change over time? At least that, because I don't think anything's gonna it's just almost impossible to affect change immediately. It has to be. I
disagree.
You disagree?
Yeah. I would tend to agree, generally speaking, if we're talking about society. But what is society? Society is you. Society is the individual acting within a group. And how does a group change? It requires change at the individual level in order to develop the culture within the group. And so anyone out there who's hate-filled, angry with 9 out of 10 Canadians all around them, and plotting to be evil, there's something wrong with you. and now that you've heard that, you get to make a choice. You get to continue being evil-minded, or you can change it in a split second and try to be better, try to be good, try to do good things for your country and for yourself and your community and your neighbor and the dude who always honks his horn and flips you the finger. You either get to focus on the negativity or you get to focus on the positivity. And by changing your program right now, split second, this moment, changing it towards trying to be better, do better as an individual, that feeds into the group, that feeds into the community, that feeds into the country. That's what creates a culture, a society. As a Canadian, as part of the Canadian society, we all become better by the individual trying to do better, not trying to tear the system down by yelling and swearing and pumping your fist and kicking tires and cursing at, whatever. I mean, that's not interacting in a positive manner with the society that we're trying to shape to become a better community.
Yeah. I had this thought while you were talking, was that perhaps, this is just a very quick thought on this, is that the further inward you look, the more drastic of change are capable in short periods of time.
Yeah.
Versus the farther outward you look, the more drastic effects and change take longer to do.
Yeah. And it's a lie. You're lying to yourself. The moment that you start pointing your finger at everyone else and saying, you all suck, you're all doing it wrong, your way isn't my way, don't worry about that nonsense. You're wrong until you start thinking about who you are rather than thinking about who they are.
Yeah.
If you're using they a lot in your paragraphs in your head, stop thinking about they and start thinking about you. You're wrong. You're not doing it right. You can do better. Don't drop the word they and your life, not they life. Your life will become a whole lot easier.
Yeah. This is exactly it, Eric. You only perceive everything on the outside through your own senses and perception. Everything happens inside of you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, we've hit an hour. We've gone on like 7 different tangents throughout.
Dude, and I know we had a plan, but where did it go? It all fell apart.
It all fell apart.
That's okay. It's good. It was fun.
It was fun. That was a good chat. I really enjoyed that. Oh, I didn't even see this one. Satch put in here. Awesome chat. Thanks,
Thanks,
Satch.
pal.
I missed that in all the comments here, but I can't thank you all enough for hanging out with us. We had some really great interaction. You guys were awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us, Shaun. Thanks for
Yeah,
the
for sure.
conversation, man. That was awesome.
Thanks,
Any
buddy.
final points before we shut her down?
No, tomorrow our what are we doing for Saturday? Is it do we have something planned or
Well, initially we were gonna do
Yuri today,
Saturday.
right?
We are gonna do Yuri on Saturday, but
Oh,
then
right,
the
right,
person
right.
I had for today wasn't able to make it, and I
Check.
got
check.
Yuri to. Was
Do I
hoping to
need
get
to
Yuri
know
in
who
here.
you had planned today, or should I not know? Maybe I don't want to know.
I don't know. Do you want to know?
Nah, surprise
okay.
me. No, I'll wait until they show up.
But yeah, for Yuri, I think what we'll do is we'll do tomorrow with Yuri, and we'll
Okay,
be able
cool.
to go all over this stuff, so we can actually have the conversation what I had thought we were going to have when we started this morning. But yeah, that'll be good. And then I got some interesting stuff coming down the pipe for the next few days.
Oh,
So
I love interesting. Dude, hey, listen, internet. For anyone who, I said it on my live chat on my Instagram page, Sean Taylor's one. I said, go listen to the chat over on the collective from yesterday, the CQB chat. You know why? Because that thing was freaking awesome, man.
that was.
And here's why it's awesome. Because not only was it a fun chat, but it's the freaking James Cameron technology that you're bringing from the Hollywood extravaganza. I'm loving it, man. I feel, you know what? If you keep it up, I might put you in for, I don't know, best special effects team, or might put you in for some sort of award for the Golden Globes. Golden Globes, baby.
I think I got some. Work to do before I hit the Golden Globes.
Oh, you got some work, bros.
Yeah, I've always got some work to do. But yeah, that CQB chat was great, and I think we applied it quite well to everything else. And like we said yesterday, and we're going to say again today, was that we're not chirping, we're not calling people out for, we're not sitting there going, this guy's doing things wrong, and this guy's doing things whack, and this is out of shape, and this is out of order. It was just how these things apply to life.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just wanted to make sure that is thoroughly placed so everybody knows. That's not what we were going after. Right. But yeah, if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel. Do hit the little notification button. Go over to the website, the-collective.ca. Enlist, sign up, so that as we learn and grow and build the collective, we do it together. So
I like it.
We'll see you tomorrow. Chimo,
right.
everybody.
Chimo.